Howdy, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings to my 400 affiliates everywhere on the globe and everyone listening vis-a-vis the universe at HughHewitt.com who are watching on YouTube, on the Hugh Hewitt channel at YouTube. Time for the rundown, the first segment of every show. The only segment you need if you're on the go. We begin with an NBC News poll that came out yesterday. Bernie Sanders at 27% of the Democratic primary voters. Joe Biden is bunched closely with Mr. Bloomberg and Elizabeth Warren, each of whom have 14%. Former Mayor Pete Buttigieg has 13%. Amy Klobuchar has 7%. It is Bernie's race. I look at a Politico story as well. Bloomberg still trails Sanders on electability. Yep, that's right. Because a lot of people thought, oh, Bloomberg's more electable. No, in spite of the polling that shows the former mayor climbing onto the national stage, he still faces the obstacle of proving to American voters that he's the best candidate to defeat President Donald Trump. Now, this was a different poll from the NBC News poll, which shows Bernie in front. This is the Politico Morning Consult poll. The survey, which came out Wednesday, today, found Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders to be in the lead when it comes to electability, winning pluralities of voters among a divided electorate. All right, so Bernie's to win. Tonight, they have a debate. New York Times says Michael Bloomberg has to debate without a net, meaning he's not very good at this. Got a little bit of a thin skin, and everyone's going to be shooting at him given the billions he's spending on this thing. And there's a great story in the Wall Street Journal by Dan Palmer. Bernie's millions beat Mike's billions. It begins, serious presidential candidates don't quit running because they lost a few primaries. They quit because they run out of money. Most large donors are strategic. There's zero value and even a stigma attached to being a big donor to a losing campaign. When candidates have a bad news cycle or underperform in a primary, large donors zip up their pockets. They wait and see if the candidate will recover. Those are harrowing times for campaigns, which must cut staff and advertising, give up the jet, try and hang on. After poor showings in Iowa and New Hampshire, it must be hell for Joe Biden's fundraising team. Mike Bloomberg is uniquely immune to donor withdrawal. The former mayor of New York is committed to reach into his $54 billion pocket and spend whatever it takes to win. Mr. Bloomberg has flipped the donor's traditional money for access and influence proposition on its head. But this trade overlooks a secondary function of campaign contributors. Donating money is a tangible commitment. When invested, donors of all kinds are likelier to tell others, work for the campaign, and vote. There aren't enough big donors for these effects to move the needle. But with small donors, these outputs are essential ingredients in the movement that generates the vote. That explains why Bernie Sanders, who commands the most developed small donor network of the Democratic primary, is leading by every measure. Only 32% of his funds come from large contributors. In 2016, the Sanders faithful kept him afloat all the way to the Democratic convention, even after it was impossible for him to win. They will do so again. They're going to do so tonight. The second big story of the day, we'll bring you all the debate tomorrow as it occurs. We'll bring you a little Bernie Sanders town hall from CNN last night. Coronavirus, of course. New York Times, coronavirus epidemic keeps growing, but spread in China slows. Not by much, friends, not by much. From Axios this morning, coronavirus may be, quote, at the brink of a global pandemic. Eileen Drag O'Reilly writes, the coronavirus outbreak may be, quote, at the brink of a global pandemic. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, tells Axios. The major concern is that people without symptoms can affect other people. That is why they fear a pandemic. The virus has killed more than 2,000, infected more than 75,000, mostly in mainland China. 5 deaths and more than 800 infections have been confirmed in 8 other nations and territories. Countries are furiously racing to contain the virus by issuing travel restrictions. More than 80% of the people who catch the infection experience mild symptoms. 14% have severe disease like pneumonia and a shortness of breath. 5% come down with a critical disease like sepsis, multi-organ failure, and respiratory failure. So 5% of people who get this, and it's going to be in the millions, have a serious, serious problem. And as I said yesterday, 2% die. Thus far, it's older people, but Fauci said, I would strongly suspect that asymptomatic people are transmitting the infection, but I don't think that's a major driver. He adds it's too early to determine the death rate, as there's not enough data yet. The Wall Street Journal writes, amid coronavirus, the whole world closes its doors to China. Quote, I feel so isolated. Canceled flights and quarantines thwart China's ambitions to put the country at the center of commerce and culture. I'm sorry about that, but I'm not sorry about locking down coronavirus. In Europe, according to the New York Times, fear spreads faster than the coronavirus itself because of so-called super carriers. There are only 42 confirmed cases across the continent, but more than 2,000 people dying in China has got the attention of those who fear asymptomatic transmission. And the big tell, China has expelled 3 Wall Street Journal reporters. I repeat, China early today expelled 3 Wall Street Journal reporters. China said it was punishment for a recent opinion piece punished by the journal. The piece referred to China as, quote, the real sick man of Asia. The Chinese propaganda ministry said that headline offended, when in fact that headline accurately tells you the truth. And when you have a totalitarian government throwing out reporters who are simply reporting the truth, you've got a lot of trouble. Donald Trump pardoned a whole bunch of people yesterday. Rod Blagojevich, I think he did that because of the hair, like Dwayne's hair. Edward DiBartolo Jr., Denise Nicole Hall, Ariel Friedler, Bernie Carrick, who used to be a guest on this show before he was convicted, Michael Milken, you all know his name, Crystal Munoz, Judith Negron, and Paul Pogue, David Savabian, and Angela Stanton. Now, I spent 0 time on this online yesterday because I don't think anyone cares. I do think they care a lot about whether or not Bill Barr stays as Attorney General. From the Wall Street Journal, Barr is said to have considered quitting over Trump tweets. From the Washington Post, Barr has told those close to the Trump he is considering quitting over the president's tweets about the Department of Justice investigations. From the New York Times, as Trump claims to be law of the land, Barr's irritation builds. That would be a disaster for the president. A disaster for the president. The president is campaigning today in Arizona after fundraising in California. He's going to help Martha McSally. Losing Bill Barr will set back his reelection and the holding on to the Senate. I'm sure Mitch McConnell is telling him that. He needs Bill Barr. He needs Bill Barr. He needs Bill Barr. He doesn't like needing anyone. He thinks he can win it by himself, but he needs Bill Barr. Meanwhile, spring training is underway, and according to the Wall Street Journal, players everywhere are blasting the Major League Baseball Commissioner Manfred's refusal to pull the Astros trophy. He should have done so. Mike Pompeo is in Africa promising true liberation to people like those in Ethiopia as compared with China's debt nomination. And I love yesterday's Wall Street Journal story. A Bernie nomination could destroy the left. We could only hope so. Bernie was on CNN last night. He said this about Mike Bloomberg, cut 21.
Anderson, I'm not much into political speculation. I don't know what's going to happen here in Nevada. I don't know what's going to happen on Super Tuesday. I don't know, who's going to win, who's going to lose. But this is what I do know. And this I feel very strongly about. Mr. Bloomberg has every right in the world to run for president of the United States. He's an American citizen. But I don't think he has the right to buy this election. We pride ourselves on being the longest-standing democracy in the world, and we're proud of that. To me, what that means, one person, one vote. You want to run for president, you run for president. You got good ideas, maybe you win, maybe you don't win. But I do think it's a bit obscene that we have somebody who, by the way, chose not to contest in Iowa, in Nevada, in South Carolina, in New Hampshire, where all of the candidates, we did town meetings, we're talking to thousands and thousands of people working hard. He said, I don't have to do that. I'm worth $60 billion.
All right, Bernie is going to make these points tonight. Every poll has Bernie ahead and extending that lead as well as on electability. Bernie is the man, and the Bernie Bros will tell you about it online. By the way, Republicans, I think your best bet is to vote Bernie as well. Stay tuned. That was the rundown, and this is the Hugh Hewitt Show.